This Bible study is sponsored by Wake Up America Seminars. Go check out their website or give them a call. They have really informative materials to study on God's character and his plans for the end times as found in Daniel and Revelation.
When the Messiah was here on earth, he told his disciples, no one knows the day or hour, not even the angels or the Son of Man, only the Father. When the Messiah said this, it was true. No one knew the day or hour. It was true 2,000 years ago. Well, if you go to Daniel 7, 13 through 15, and Revelation 5, what you will see is that the Messiah, when he returned to heaven, after he said these words, he was given all power. He was given the kingdom. In 1798, he was given the kingdom. And he's been breaking the seals off the scroll that was handed to him. That's true.
Share the same message, last 20 years. Been saying the same thing with many fears. Day one on the floor, tears in my eyes. A lot of people don't know, would be surprised. I gave my whole life to live Christ. Some just living life to throw rice. Yeah, life bloody, no it's not nice. People call you buddy with a sharp knife. I met many snakes and few sheep. I can't even hate if they hate me. There's a due date for the hate speech. I see a new face when the fake leave. I was sent from heaven with the last message. Before the 144, then I'll be lesser. Golden sister coming before the second coming. 7 seals getting broke before the 7 trumpets.
Soon and very soon, a lot of people are going to be killed by the destruction that's coming on earth. The person that you're looking at right now, the person that you're next to, that person could be gone in a second.
This could be the last time before your heart fail. To hear a message like this before the sea swell. Men about to faint, women will cry. To know 1 out of 4 will die. You can't know this with AI. You need the Holy Spirit and a real God. God tried to use flesh in human form. Human race is a mess unless they reborn.
I want to start off with a question. Is the book of Daniel intended for the time of the end? If you go to Daniel 12:4, it'll answer the question for us. But you, Daniel, close up and seal the words until the time of the end.
They holding rocks in their hand cause their heart wicked. They don't even have a plan, they don't know it's business. You don't listen, stuck in religion. Can't put me to death, you need another witness. I'm protected by a promise, I ain't the scroll. You still looking for a woman, go ahead scroll. I'm looking for the seal of God on some foreheads. You still looking for a job cause you want bread. It's hard to have faith when you're not led by the Holy Spirit cause you're hard-head. We at the very end, spinning one bullet, Russian roulette, go ahead pull it. It's hard to have faith when you're not led by the Holy Spirit cause you're hard-head. We at the very end, spinning one bullet, Russian roulette, go ahead pull it.
Facebook, YouTube, welcome back. Back with another Bible study. Before we get started with Bible study, I know Facebook and YouTube, we were supposed to do TGIF last night. Something came up. We will be back next week though to make up for this week. But of course, we are back with another Bible study. We're continuing on in God's justice. But before we really get started on anything, I want to welcome in Zoom because Zoom is always doing these Bible studies with us. Zoom is always, even crushing it on TGIF when we do TGIF. So Zoom, you want to say good morning and happy Sabbath to Facebook and YouTube?
Good morning.
Peace and blessings. Most definitely. All that good stuff, right? So we are continuing on with how important it is, how important God's justice is. And last week what we discussed was just how, or I keep saying last week, it was actually just Tuesday. It's a couple of days ago. But but here I go, I was about to say it again. But last study, what we went through was we got to see the justice that God wanted us, the justice that God wanted us to have, the characteristics that He wanted to embed in us to have the same heart that He has. We do this thing though after Bible study on Zoom. We like to chop it up, and we got some really good points as we were, discussing what we went through in Bible study, and it's just how God, of course, is the good judge, and how He, of course, wants to, as He is the good judge, He wants us to be the same type of judge that He is, being unbiased, being fair, being righteous as He is. So, and as we understand that, what we'll get to see is we'll get to be able to present that from the Word. So today, that's pretty much what we'll be doing, and we're going to do it the same way that we did last week, where we're going to look up some definitions of some words as we go through, because what we found is as we read the word, and they're words that we're familiar with, when you look at that definition, it really makes the word of God come to life a little bit more, to give you a deeper perspective of the way that of what God is truly trying to say. So let's dive, of course, into the word. But before we do that, I have a question, family. I told Zoom, if I'm looking this way, and I know you see me on the same way, Facebook and YouTube, I'm looking this way, I'm looking at the screen where Zoom is, but the camera is over this way. So is you guys. So I'm looking at y'all without looking at y'all, if that makes sense. But Zoom, question: what is what is a judge? What is a judge? Simply, we're gonna start there. Let's start simple.
It's the person that determines who's right and who's wrong.
Person who determines who's right and who's wrong.
The elected servant of the justice system.
An elected servant of the justice system. I like that definition.
A mediator.
A mediator. All of these things are good.
A ruler.
A ruler. I like that. Can I get some what's some qualities of a good judge? Like what type of judge would you want to be for you? Because of course all these things is right. Like he's a mediator, it's a person who determines right from wrong. Do you want somebody who's corrupt before you? Like if you got a speeding ticket, you want an unfair judgment? What's some qualities?
Unbiased.
Unbiased.
Patient.
Patient. Like that. Unbiased.
No prejudices.
No prejudices, of course.
Knowledgeable.
Law-abiding, knowledgeable. I like these. So these are good qualities of a judge that you would want. Like we as we look at it and as we're going to go through this word, we see it. We can see the qualities of what a good judge is, and if you are presented in a situation where you have to be presented in court, or have to stand in defense of yourself in court, these are the qualities of a judge that you would want. Somebody who's fair, somebody who's patient, someone who is willing to hear the whole ordeal out. They're law abiding, which means the laws that stand before them, they stand by, and they're not abusive with their power is what I'm trying to get to. Where they abide by the laws. The laws are made righteous, and we're hear it in the spirit, because as we're talking about God's justice. Remember how we established last study, God gave his justice what he wanted through. You could go and read it all through Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, where he's given his laws. And in his laws, you get to see the justice that he wanted his chosen people at that time, he wanted them to abide in. And of course, we know that he wants us to abide in that same way, to have that same fairness, that same justice. So you will want that kind of judge. So we're going to see the qualities and the characteristics that the Lord wanted to give Israel and wanted them to operate in from the word. So let's go to Exodus 23, and we're going to read 1 through 9. And of course, we're going to read this slow, and we're going to see we're going to pull out all the nuggets that we can in today. But Of course, we're going to stop and do all of those things too. I like to give these warnings because I don't want people to just be like, why am I stopping every 2 seconds? But I want to, you know. And of course, I know that's more so for Facebook and YouTube. Zoom, who's the veterans, they've been around, so they kind of know how I teach. So, Exodus 23, let's just start at 1. Remember, this is the qualities and the characteristics that the Lord wants us to have, and he wanted them to have as being good judges. Where, so let's start at verse 1. Do not spread false reports. Do not help a guilty person by being a malicious witness. So, of course, we're going to stop here. So we get to see this is one of the first things that he wants to do. Remember, we talked about last week in that same scriptures that we read, where he didn't want the spreading of false reports. He wanted you to be an honest person. He wanted you to be honest, he take the whole matter into care. Do not help a guilty person by being a malicious witness. What that means is, have you ever had someone that you love and care for give you a one-sided story? They come and they give you a one-sided story, and you are very quick. You are very quick to go and defend them and be like, man, no, my friend, she told me, or they told me you did X, Y, and Z, and you are executing your judgment by going in defense of someone, but they didn't give you the full story. They didn't give you the full story, and it's a couple different scenarios where this can apply to, because also in the same sense, this can be, and I'm not saying it's a double meaning, I'm just saying it's a broader way that you can be a malicious witness, where you are showing favoritism to someone, where you are lying in favor of whoever it is that is on the defense or is making a claim, being a malicious. And we can can somebody look up what malicious means?
I knew it was coming, I got you. All right, pull it up.
Thank you, sis. Whenever you got it.
All right, I got having or showing a desire to cause harm to someone, given to or marked by or arising from malice.
See? So remember, we talked about even what the qualities of a judge. We was like, yo, you can't even have prejudice. Here it is, even as a witness, not just a judge, as a witness who is on the stand and giving an account. He don't want you to be, he don't want you to be dishonest or have prejudice, where you want to cause harm to somebody, or you don't like somebody and you're automatically just like, I'm on whoever other side is. But today's age, we do that quite often. We have people that we don't like, groups of people that we don't even care for or care to give. Oh man, let's keep reading, because it's going to apply. Like the being a malicious witness is so important. And I love those characteristics that we was given in the beginning of how he doesn't want you to be prejudiced or anything, or he wants you to be unbiased, because what he wants in the beginning, like what he wants us to be, is solely looking after justice. Like justice has to come before anything. That justice reign no matter who the person is. So we're going to get there. So let's continue reading. Verse 2. Do not follow the crowd in doing wrong. When you give testimony in a lawsuit, do not pervert justice by siding with the crowd. You have to be able to be firm, to stand it, not to be influenced by everybody else because it's the norm, or doing what everybody else is doing. This causes you to be like, it causes you to kind of like breathe, like take your time in what you are bringing judgment on when the case is before you, not being influenced by how the crowd is moving. Like you could kind of see you could see some of the characteristics in the way that like how our justice system is, and what they try to do is where they try to say, hey, don't discuss it, Don't discuss the case. If you ever had jury duty, they tell you like, don't discuss the case, don't do all of these things because they don't want you to be or they don't want you to be biased. So they usually try to tell you, not to read up on things or look up and all these other things because they want you to have an unbiased opinion. But of course, we know that people don't follow it, so it usually tends to happen. But he's saying not to follow the crowd, and of course, man, yeah, don't watch the news or anything like that. So here we get to see what the Lord is trying to say when he's saying, don't follow the crowd. So even if the crowd is doing all of these things, even if the crowd is saying and just don't just go with the flow, is what I'm getting at. To take the time, gather all of the facts together, and then produce the judgment. Unbiased, unprejudiced, slow, and righteous and fair. Because if you just go with the flow and just do what the crowd wants you to do, you're perverting justice. Justice isn't fulfilled. You're just giving the crowd what they want, not true justice. You're just giving the crowd what they want. And as we discussed, and I know Zoom know this, what we discussed is after the Bible study on Tuesday is that like that same justice system that we will be asking mercy for, we would want to use to condemn someone else. The same system. The same system that family members will say, free so and so for doing a crime is the same one if that crime was committed to them, they would be saying, give them life, throw the book at them. But here he's saying, he wants justice to reign and have that heart that he has, unbiased, no favoritism, and no all of those things. Verse 3. Here it even says it here in verse 3. And do not show favoritism to a poor person in a lawsuit. It's that same thing, no favoritism. And then we talked about it last week where he says, don't have any favoritism. Unbiased. Just look at all of those qualities that we talked about and how important it is to have these qualities and what he wanted them to have. If you come across your enemy's ox or donkey wandering off, be sure to return it. If you see the donkey of someone who hates you falling down under its load, do not leave it there. Be sure you help them with it. Man, these two verses are very big because of how he wants you to act and how he wants you to put into practice his justice. Or even if you see your enemy, I know how a lot of us, or not a lot of us, but in today's age, what's common is if we see somebody who what we like to say, I'm going to use young people terms. I know Zoom, Facebook and YouTube may get what I'm going to say. But what people will say is, I don't have beef with them. They got beef with me. It's weird. But when we see people that may not like us, something wrong goes wrong in their life, what you will see a lot of times is a lot of people will be happy and exuberant, like, oh yeah, and turn their head to the help that they could possibly give or anything, and they'll just say, God don't play about me, as if the bad thing that happens to them is God showing favoritism to them over that person. Where here the Lord is giving us a way to walk in where he's saying, even if this person who does not like you, or you may have be at odds with them, make sure that your heart is not biased by saying, hey, I don't like you, you did this thing to me, so I'm not going to help you. That's not what he really wants. Go ahead, Sister Deidre.
And get my mute button on. Those excuse me, those two verses remind me, where are we, 4 and 5, remind me of when Jesus came and essentially said, these are the two main commandments. And the second one is treating, you know what I'm saying, loving your neighbor the way that you love yourself, or treating your neighbor the way you would want to be treated. It's the same thing in those voices, in those verses. Like, you can have beef with them, but don't help bad stuff happen to them. And if something is already happening, go ahead and help them out. It's like, you know, don't think about yourself and how you feel in that moment. Try to help them out in any way that you can, even if you don't like them.
Yep. Or even if they don't like you, like it's that that unbiased, because this is the ways that he was given, in the ways that he gives is how the kingdom operates. Reconciliation between brothers and sisters. You may be at odds right now, it ain't gonna last forever. You should be able to, before, because he even has appointed festivals where, hey, before this even happens, or before this date even comes, you need to go and make peace with your brother. But you'll make it more difficult to be at peace with somebody if, when this stuff happens and you could have helped and you don't help. You don't put in the practice of being a good judge where justice is reigning in every situation. You don't get that. You don't get that opportunity. You know, it makes it more difficult, is what I'm more so trying to say. It makes it more difficult if you're not putting that into practice. If you're not killing that flesh that rises up, that says whatever at odds you are with a person, that bias will stick. Because then if you do it with one person, you'll do it with another. Or you'll do it with another, you'll do it with another. Okay, then a friend presents a case to you, and you'll defend them because, hey, I feel you because I did the same thing when such and such happened to, we'll do these things. But if you don't kill it right here, where he's telling you to put it into practice, hey, make sure when that stuff happens, you're going to be at odds with someone. If you're not putting this into practice, then you will have that bias. You will have that favoritism that you will play. And we all know how important God's justice is. We're going to see that again and see how important justice is to God. Yeah, it's not easy to change, and it's a very humbling and difficult process, but it's important. Very difficult, because killing something that's in you is very, very, very difficult. But of course, with the Lord, all things is possible. This process that He wants us to go through, it's a refining process, and it's good for the soul. These are practices and ways that they aren't just for here, but they lead into eternity. It's a real good work that'll be on the soul, following the way that the Lord wants us to operate in. How we operate now, putting those into practice, because it ain't like the switch gonna get flipped when you get to heaven. All right, now I can act how the Lord wanted me to act. It's no, if you're not putting it into practice now, you're not going to overcome. You're going to stay in your old ways, having your biases, having your favoritism, and all of these things that the Lord doesn't like. We're going to see how important that is once we get towards the end. But let's continue. Verse 6. Do not deny justice to your poor people in their lawsuits. So it's the you see the two sides of the coin that he gave in the beginning, and we're in verse 3 where it says don't show favoritism, and then here we get in verse 6 where it says don't deny justice to your poor people in their lawsuits. So don't also don't have too much favoritism, but also don't there's where you show another form of favoritism where you, or not favoritism, it's more of the malicious side where it's like, man, we don't care about a poor person. It's the right in the medium, right in the middle, where he's just saying, hey, let justice be justice. Don't favor them, don't hate them, but just let justice be justice. Verse 7, have nothing to do with the false charge, and do not put an innocent or honest person to death, for I will not acquit the guilty. Man, that is a heavy charge, and it's that responsibility. This is pointing out how important the responsibility of being a good judge is, where you have to, In order for this to happen, you have to be very careful with your decision, very wise. You have to seek counsel. You have to seek counsel with the Lord. And of course, we know how important this is. It's the test everything by the Spirit to see if it comes from the Lord, of course, but in the aspect of making sure that you have all of the facts before you pronounce a judgment. And especially in this case of when he was giving them the laws of putting people to death. You do not want to have innocent blood on your hands. So how, as a judge, remember when someone said, yo, the quality that I would want for someone to be a judge is for them to be patient. That takes patience to go through the case and gather all of the facts, to hear all of the sides. And then instead of making a quick judgment by favoring somebody or just wanting the case to be out your face, you sit on it, you think about it before you pronounce the judgment. It calls you to slow down and not be so hasty. And I say that because in this day and age, we have seen it where there are a lot of people in our justice system who may not have gotten that fair justice because rather it was too many cases or they deemed someone to not be worthy of getting justice. It's whatever. There isn't a real, it's way too much in a country where the word is, what am I trying to say? In a country that is saying that they're in God we trust. Is, of course, you ask which God, but for a country that has the most Christians in it, to have a system where the judge isn't even, where a judge can become either overwhelmed or doesn't care about true justice. They just want to get a case over with, or they show favoritism, or they have biases, and they say they don't. And then they'll make an oath and say that they don't and that they'll be fair and just, but that's not how they truly operate. Ooh, sis, can you say that out loud? Because even in the system, that's big.
Yeah, that, like you were saying, not having that biasness. There's a lot of times where you see two people that have been charged with the same crime, have been convicted of the same crime, but they're given different sentencing.
So it's a bias in the system. So even the laws and the things that they stand on, or even the laws that they have made, have biases in them. That ain't very different than how God operates. So let's continue reading because you're gonna even see it. But that's a way in where you see this charge. Like he says, I will not acquit the guilty. So if you're guilty of this, it's on you. Verse 8, do not accept a bribe, for a bribe blinds those who see and twist the word of the innocent. Twist the words of the innocent. Do not accept a bribe, for a bribe blinds those who see and twist the words of the innocent. Can I have somebody look up the word bribe?
An inducement such as money, a gift, or a favor offered or given to a person in a position of trust to persuade them to act dishonestly or illegally.
A gift, money, whatever it is that influence a person that is in a position of trust. Do not accept a bribe. Don't accept a gift from somebody, money from somebody that will, because you are in a position of trust. How important is that position that you are in? Like we just said, it's a position of power. Like to be a good judge. Like this is, and if you are accepting a bribe, that means I don't want to abide by the law. I'm showing favoritism to whoever gave me the most money or the money or whatever gift or whatever it is that they're offering. And now you are blinded. You're blinded. You're not focusing on justice. You're focusing on self. become selfish. It's not the quality of a good judge and how he wants you to operate. And lastly, do not oppress a foreigner. You yourselves know how it. Verse 9, I'm sorry, I'm going to start over. Do not oppress a foreigner. You yourselves know how it feels to be a foreigner because you were foreigners in Egypt. That same bias, how important that is to not be biased, to hear a whole matter out. Just because somebody is from somewhere different or have different culture or anything like that, no matter what it is, I want you to have the same justice, whether it's with your brother, whether it's with someone that you don't know, whoever it is, because you know what it's like to be in that same position. To be foreigners in the land in Egypt, and that same oppression, you don't want to become oppressive to somebody else. Because you've seen what I did to Egypt when they became oppressive. Oppression to govern or treat a person or a group in cruel, unjust, and heavy-handed way. Thank you, Sister Brandy. You don't, and you're in a position of trust. I like the way that that's put. Very important for us to have that same justice. And like you said in the beginning, man, you don't want to become that person. that same thing that we said, the same system, and when I say the same system, we talk about it in today's day and age, and the system, of course, in this society that we live in, the same system that we will be asking for, mercy. We will try to use or want to use to throw the book at someone else. That's not the heart that he wants you to operate in. Where you are biased, where you're thinking about self and you want mercy for self, but you're unwilling to give that same mercy that you want for yourself to someone else. So this is how the Lord wanted them to operate in. And go ahead, Pastor Derek.
Finish your point.
Oh, and this is how the Lord wanted Israel and his chosen people at the time, of course, and even us, how he wanted them to operate. And of course, we know as we read through the word that they don't operate in it, but we get to see how important this justice is to God and what happens. So we're going to go over to Isaiah 1. So as Pastor Derek is talking, if everybody can, we can go over to Isaiah 1.
I like the contrast that you were pointing out in verse 9. So in verse 3 it says, don't show bias just to a poor person in a lawsuit, right? You've seen examples like in this land where someone poor is going up for a big conglomerate, you know what I mean? And then us on the side, sideline coaches is like, yo, they got all this money, just give them the money. You know what I mean? And and the biasness and the unfairness in that is what God is pointing out there, like you said in verse 9, where it's saying, do not forget this poor person. It's kind of like you said, that happy medium. In business, back in the day when you would do inventory, bro, if your system said you had 5 pieces, and your mama Sue laughing, she know where I'm going, and you had 4 pieces, that would be called a variance, right? Because you had less pieces than the system thought that you had. And back in the day, if the system said you had 5 pieces and you had 6, that was a plus, you were good. But they don't do that anymore. Inventory variance is an inventory variance. So if you got more than you say you're supposed to have, or less than what you say you're supposed to have, that is an inventory variance. That's an issue. So the reason why I use that is whether in the example in verse 3 and verse 9, whether you're being biased for this poor person, correct, or neglecting the poor person, you're still operating in a variance or operating negatively the way that God wants us to operate. It's the same thing.
And that's in quality control, right?
Yep.
So the quality that he wants us to operate in, the quality control that he wants us to operate in, is to not have that variance. Bruh.
That's correct.
Fire. Like it's that important. Like not not to show favoritism, and not to be malicious. So he wants that justice is right in between, where it's just and fair on both sides. Meaning those who are deserving get their just dues of rather that be good or right, and those who are deserving get those just dues rather that be justice. You know, those who deserve justice will get justice. Those who deserve punishment or guilt, you know, will get that. And there's, of course, where he wanted them to have is an opportunity for them to return and make right what was wrong. We discussed that last time with when someone discovers their guilt, when they come into realization that they've done a wrong, to make it right. So get your just your just dues, or however you pronounce the saying, if you get what I'm saying. So we're going into Isaiah 1, and then like we just said, this is how what we read in Exodus is how he wanted them to operate, and that was when they first came out of Egypt. Here we get into Isaiah. It's been years, hundreds of years at this point, where they've had king after king after king, and we get to see what was lost in those years of hearing, of course, into now. Did they instill it into their children? Did they pass it down? Of course, and we know that he didn't. But we get to see how important it was, how important that justice was, that once it was lost, how they began to operate. Because we're going to read we're going to read 15 through 28. But just a quick 1 through 5 on how impactful this justice was is that the Lord is describing, or the Lord through Isaiah is describing how sinful they had become, and all of these things, all of these harsh things that were happening to them was happening. And then, like, I'm going to just read verse 4 where it says, "Woe to a sinful nation, a people whose guilt is great, a brood of evildoers." We're in First Isaiah 1. And I'm just reading verse 4. And it says, "Woe to a sinful nation, a people whose guilt is great, a brood of evildoers, children given to corruption." So here it is, they were given into corruption. This is passed down. So that way that I was trying to give them, it wasn't being passed down. What was being passed down was that version of justice where it's more biased of what we was talking about. Our justice is free my family, free those that I love, put whoever is I consider to be an enemy, or, you know, someone that I don't like, put them. Oh, did I say First Isaiah? My bad.
Yeah, you said First Isaiah.
My bad. But that same in verse 4, that same here it is, we'll say, you know, free my family member, but on the other hand, that's the justice that we think is justice, where free my family member or whoever it is that I love, and that same person who commits that same kind of crime but is committed against me, yeah, put them away forever or they deserve death. And that's corruption. That's not the way that the Lord wants you to operate. Is justice on both sides, where he wants it to be fair and on fair throughout how we operate. But they didn't pass that down. They didn't pass down his ways. They passed down that biased, that impatient, that whatever benefits me and however it benefits me. That's what got passed down. It says, "A brood of evildoers, children given to corruption. They have forsaken the Lord. They have spurned the Holy One, or Israel, and turned their backs on him." And of course, spurned means like to reject. So they have rejected the Holy One of Israel and turned their backs. How did they reject him? By not holding on to his ways that he had given them, but they had passed down their own sense of justice, their own ways that benefited them and however it benefited them, given over to corruption. So I'm going to skip down to verse 7 where it says, your country is desolate, your cities burned with fire, your fields are being stripped by foreigners right before you, laid waste as when overthrown by strangers. These are the things that's happening to them. Daughter Zion is left like a shelter in the vineyard, like a hut in a cucumber field, like a city under siege. Unless the Lord Almighty had left us some survivors, we would have become like Sodom. We would have been like Gomorrah. This is what, because of the lack of justice. So let's jump down to 15 so we can see, because because as you if you look at like verse 13, or even at 12 where it says, when you come before me, who has asked this of you, this trampling of my courts, justice isn't being given. But they're still doing the religious things. They're still holding on the new festival. I mean, the new moons, the Sabbaths, and convocations. And he's saying like these appointed festivals and all these things he began to hate. So that became a burden to him. He says, when you spread, verse 15, when you spread out your hands in prayer, I hide my eyes from you. Even when you offer many prayers, I am not listening. Your hands are full of blood. Remember, we just read in Exodus 21 where it was saying, y'all, the innocent person, make sure you have nothing to do with a false report or putting the innocent person to death. I will not acquit the guilty. How important that was for them to hold on to that. And here we see what got lost in translation. What it wasn't the Lord's ways. He just said it in the earlier verses where it says, they have forsaken or they have rejected the Holy One. A children given into corruption. So instead of following what the Lord had gave them, they just went off and did their own thing. So he's given them a way to return to him when you get to verse 16 where it says, wash and make yourselves clean. Take your evil deeds out of my sight. Stop doing wrong. Learn to do right. Seek justice. Defend the oppressed. Take up the cause of the fatherless. Plead the case of the widow. Come now, let us settle this matter, says the Lord. Though your sins are like scarlet, they shall be as white as snow. Though they are red as crimson, they shall be like wool. If you are willing and obedient, you will eat the good things of the land of Israel. If you are willing and obedient, remember when we was talking about last time where it was the process that he wanted them to go through. It's a humbling and heavy experience to stop doing something that you have been doing for a very long time and to take on his ways. So now you die to your flesh daily. That bias, you're removing. That selfishness that you've been operating in, you remove it. If you are willing and obedient, you will be clean. If you are willing and you hold on to my ways, then you are truly my disciple. And you'll know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. But having to be willing and obedient to humble yourself and to take on his ways, being obedient and taking on his ways. But verse 20, it says, but if you resist and rebel, you will be devoured by the sword, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken. See how the faithful city has become a prostitute? Remember we talked about faithful? Faithful was to be in allegiance, to show loyalty. How the city was once loyal when they held on to my ways, now have given themselves to every kind of way that the nations were operating in, that I wanted you to be separate from. A prostitute given over into any ways. She once was full of justice. Righteousness used to dwell in her, but now murderers. Your silver has become dross. Can somebody look up what dross is? I found this to be cool. I was nerding out when I seen this.
I know what it means in my world, so I'm gonna wait till the definition and see if it means the same thing.
Now I'm curious to what it mean in your world.
In metallurgy, it's the scum or unwanted material that forms on the surface of molten metal.
That is correct.
Yep.
And if it is not removed, it can cut you and hurt you and damage you.
Man.
It's a product, a faulty product.
A faulty product.
The second one says waste or foreign matter, impurity.
Man. Says your silver has become that. Waste. It has become harmful. Unwanted. Your choice wine is diluted with water. Where going even back to 22 where it says your silver has become dross. It was once pure. The silver was pure, but now has become this way. Filled with impurities, filled with unwanted material. And it says your rulers are rebels. Your rulers are rebels, partners with thieves. They all love bribes. So they're selfish, looking after self, not holding justice. They're holding biases to whoever is giving me the biggest amount of money will win. Because right after it says, and chase after gifts. They do not defend the cause of the fatherless. The widow's case does not come before them. Therefore, the Lord Almighty, the Mighty One of Israel declares, I will vent my wrath on my foes and avenge myself on my enemies. I will turn my hand against you. I will thoroughly purge away your dross and remove all your impurities. So that the way that you get the dross out is that you have to apply an immense amount of heat. So, of course, it's that refining process. His wrath is coming as a refining process of redemptive judgment. Where I'm applying this pressure to you in hopes that you will return. Remember, he said, those who, if you are willing and obedient, your sin that was scarlet red, you will now be dressed in white. Like it will be now white as snow. Your slate that was dripped in red will be white as snow. If you are willing and obedient, that heat that I'm applying through this wrath that I'm about to bring is going to bring up those impurities. And you have to skim them off the top. And what's left is the pure metal, whatever it is, whether that be gold or whether that be silver. You apply the heat, remove this is why he says I'm going to purge away this dross through this process and remove all of these impurities. And in 26, and after that, here it is where it says, I will restore your leaders as in the days of old, your rulers at the beginning. Afterwards, you will be called the city of righteousness, the faithful city. Go ahead, Pastor Derek.
Finish your thought, bro.
No. Go ahead. You go ahead before I finish these last two verses.
I wanted to point out what causes dross. So dross happens in the metal cutting process. And if you're cutting too slow, you can cause dross. If you're cutting too fast, you can cause dross. You have to cut that speed right in the middle where you cut it and it's a clean cut. If you go too fast, or if you go too slow, just like we were talking about earlier, that's what biases is. We only look sometimes as biasness from one perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And the only perspective that we should be looking at as one perspective is God's perspective. Everything else is bias.
Absolutely. Like you just said, you bring judgment too fast, it's unfair. But if you go too slow, it's a time period of where like justice doesn't reign. So, absolutely, bro. And that's the way that he wants us to operate. After you, man, once you've been purged of those impurities, go ahead, Mama Sue.
I just have to point out, I love verse 21 versus verse 26. He says, see how the faithful city has become a prostitute? And then he goes through that refining process and under fire, getting rid of the impurities, like you said. And then he says, afterward, you will be called the city of righteousness, the faithful city, not the prostitute anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good, really good, Brother Teach.
Because at the beginning of even that verse, he said, I will restore your leaders as in the old days. When I first gave it, when they were willing and obedient. Because that's what he said. You have become this way, but I'm going to purge you. I got to purge these impurities that came from this way. And then after that, I will restore you like how I was in the beginning. Where you're holding on to the first thing that I gave to you, which was my ways and my justice that I wanted you to have. So now you can come back to being the righteous and faithful because you're going to hold on to it, knowing what that heat do. And you're not going to go too slow with your judgment or not too fast because you're going to care. And that's the most important part too. Or another important part is to actually care. You're going to care about justice because you see the weight of what happens when justice isn't in the forefront in this trusted position. So here in verse 27, Zion will be delivered with justice. Her penitent ones with righteousness. If someone could, of course, can you look up what penitent is?
A person who repents of sin. A person under church censure, but admitted to penance or reconciliation, especially under the direction of a confessor.
I have feeling or expressing humble or regretful pain or sorrow for sins or offenses.
Go ahead, Pastor Derek.
Deidre kind of hit it. Mine says someone who is deeply sorry, ashamed, and full of remorse for a wrongdoing, and is actively seeking forgiveness or making up for their actions.
Whew. When they realize their guilt, this is what they become. So after he has purged all of those impurities out you be delivered with justice. Her penitent ones with righteousness. So now you're going to run back and you're going to stay in that lane and in that vein of how he originally wanted you to operate in. Is how important justice is to him and how we should operate in that justice. And of course, verse 28, we got the other side of the coin. But rebels and sinners will both be broken, and those who forsake the Lord will perish. That piece of metal that dross doesn't come out of, you just get rid of it. If I can't get the impurities out of it, you take what you can, and whatever you can get off that's pure that you can get off. But the rest of that's stuck like that, it's waste. It's not good. It's not the value that I want it to be at. I want this to be pure. And of course, we just know how the Lord operates in this. How he operate. And of course, like with Israel, where he was warning them and trying to guide them to hold on to his ways. And it gets until so long where you have shown and they rejected the Messiah, I remove your lamp. Because here it is, I wanted you to be a light for me, an example of how I operate and how my kingdom operates. But instead, what you put in the forefront is how you operate in your ways and your justice, which is biased and fair. So, and let me see. Let's we're gonna read one more thing and then we'll close out. I like the way I like I like this because Mama Sue called me and gave me this as well. And it really shows just how important justice is to God. And that's what this is. Of course, the study has been God's justice, how he established it, and how important it is for us to operate in it and to hold on to his ways. So, we're going to go over the First Kings. There's an actual First Kings, brother. First King. First Kings 3. And this is familiar. And we're going to read 5 through 15. If somebody could. I know, I've been reading this whole time, so. Appreciate you, brother.
You said 5?
Yep, you can start at 5.
5 through what?
15.
All right, I got you. At Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon during the night in a dream. And God said, ask for whatever you want me to give you. Solomon answered, you have shown great kindness to your servant, my father David, because he was faithful to you and righteous and upright in heart. You have continued this great kindness to him and have given him a son to sit on this throne this very day. Now, Lord my God, you have made your servant king in place of my father David. But I am only a little child and do not know how to carry out my duties. Your servant is here among the people you have chosen, a great people, 2 numbers to count or number. So give your servant a discerning heart to govern your people and to distinguish between right and wrong. For who is able to govern this great people of yours? The Lord was pleased that Solomon had asked for this, so God had said to him, since you have asked for this and not for long life or wealth for yourself, and not have asked for death of your enemies, but for the discernment and administering justice, I will do what you have asked. I will give you a wise and discerning heart so that there will never be anyone like you, nor will there ever be. Moreover, I will give you what you have not asked for, both wealth and honor, so that in your lifetime you will have no equal among kings. And if you walk in obedience to me, and keep my decrees and commands as David your father did, I will give you a long life. Then Solomon awoke, and he realized it had been a dream. He returned to Jerusalem, stood before the ark of the Lord's covenant, and sacrificed burnt offerings and fellowship offerings. Then he gave a feast for all of his court.
See how important it is? So the Lord was pleased that he had asked for this. Not for all of those other things were selfishness, but in having the discernment to make sure justice is at the forefront. And then if you read down from 16 through 28, we get to see that justice that he immediately goes and administer. Do you guys want to read that together? We can read that together as a family if you want to.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So we get to see how he operates. So starting at verse 16, it says, now 2 prostitutes came to the king and stood before him. One of them said, pardon me, my lord. This woman and I live in the same house, and I had a baby while she was there with me. The 3rd day after my child was born, this woman also had a baby. We were alone and there was no one in the house but the 2 of us. During the night, this woman's son died because she lay on him. So she got up in the middle of the night and took my son from my side while I, your servant, was asleep. She put him by her breast and put her dead son by my breast. The next morning I got up to nurse my son and he was dead. But when I looked at him closely in the morning light, I saw that it wasn't the son I had born. The other woman said, no, the living one is my son, the dead one is yours. But the first one insisted, no, the dead one is yours, the living one is mine. And so they argued before the king. The king said, this one says my son is alive and yours is dead, while that one says, no, your son is dead and mine is alive. Then the king said, bring me a sword. So they brought a sword for the king. He then gave an order, cut the living child in two and give half to the one and the other half to the other. The woman whose son was alive was deeply moved out of love for her son and said to the king, please, my lord, give her the living baby. Don't kill him. But the other one said, neither I nor you shall have him. Cut him in two. Then the king gave his ruling. Give the living baby to the first woman. Do not kill him. She is his mother. When all Israel heard the verdict the king had given, they held the king in awe because they saw he had wisdom from God to administer justice. He was able to see and able to discern because the Lord gave him the wisdom to administer this justice. This is how important and how the Lord wants us to operate in having justice and making justice the forefront, not showing favoritism to one or the other, but hearing the whole matter and moving in the wisdom that he wants us to move in. It's that important. And he wants to establish that. Like I said, we talked in the beginning of how important it is for us to be putting into practice this now and being wise in our judgments and making justice at the forefront and being fair, being unbiased, being true in every aspect of our life. Because we have those who as a believer, you have a responsibility. You're in a position of trust where you are representing the kingdom. What better way would it be not to have your own and lean into your own understanding and lead into your own righteous, self-righteous ways, but to walk in his righteousness in the ways that he established, and having that character is very important for us. It's very important for us to walk in his justice, because in the same position as we are being ambassadors and being a light to those around us, there will also be an upcoming position that we have to play, which if we turn to Revelation 20, we will see during Revelation. And we'll read this last thing and then we'll close. This is important for us to put into practice now. What we're putting into practice now, being righteous and moving in justice and removing all of those impurities from the ways that we have grown, the ways that we have been raised in this society. All of those impurities from those selfishness, those biases, all of the isms that we may have had, that we have to purge by holding on to his justice and making sure that we are fair and just in everything that we are doing, saying, and operating in and participating in, not being influenced by the crowd and what the norm is, but making sure that everything that we do is lining up with God. It's important. Every one of those things is very important. And it's important because, like we said before, that switch isn't going to get flipped once you get to heaven. He wants you operating in it now. So it'll be a smooth transition once you've already been putting it in practice. It was a smooth transition when Moses, who has already been working as a shepherd, goes to now shepherd people. Smooth transition. He was already operating in and having former kind of characteristics and understanding. It was a smooth transition from the disciples where Jesus said, follow me and I will make you fishers of men. You know how to fish for actual fish, but now I'm gonna show you how to fish for souls. It's a smooth transition. So in the same way we operate in his justice and his character and his spirit, it's a smooth transition into this position that he wants us to be in. Revelation 20, verse 4, we'll read 4 through 6. And it says, actually, we can start at 1. And I saw an angel coming down out of heaven, having the key to the abyss and holding in his hand a great chain. He seized the dragon, that ancient serpent who is the devil or Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years. He threw him into the abyss and locked and sealed it over him to keep him from deceiving the nations anymore until the 1,000 years were ended. After that, he must be set free for a short time. I saw thrones on which were seated those who had been given authority to judge. And I saw the souls of those who had been beheaded because of their testimony about Jesus and because of the word of God. They had not worshipped the beast or its image and had not received its mark on their forehead or their hands. They came to life and reigned with Christ 1,000 years. The rest of the dead did not come to life until the 1,000 years were ended. This is the first resurrection. Blessed and holy are those who share in the first resurrection. The second one has no power over them, but they will be priests of God, and Christ will reign with them for 1,000 years. So those who come out of the great tribulation, or those who will have not worshipped the beast, you overcome, you have went through your faith test, received the seal of God. This position where you are given the authority to judge. If you have any of those impurities in you, you can't make it here. Like that the hate that you have for races, the hate that you have for people, and it makes you even think of just how even growing up in a church system, even the hate that you are instilled with for the devil, operating in hate for anyone, or bias, should I even say, moving and operating in bias, you will not be able to be, you can't trust someone who's going to be biased to someone on their case. Because God's judgment, how he will judge and how he has been judging and what he's going to do is going to be just and fair to every situation, case by case. Not a one size fit all type of judgment where, it's no matter if your sin is big or small, you get the same judgment as someone who committed murder or, things of that nature, if you get what I'm saying. It's important for us to be operating in his justice and having his ways, removing those impurities of biases and every ism that you could think of. Sexism, racism, all of those things. Because this position of trust is very much so important. Go ahead, Mama Sue.
We gotta be qualified to sit in the jury box.
Yeah.
We've gotta be qualified. Are we qualified?
Yep.
Or are we working towards being qualified?
Yep. The questions that they go through or that they ask, like, are you willing and able to be unbiased in this process? Have any of these things happened? Like that whole process, and we understand that for our system and that jury selection system, like that process that we have here. You can only imagine what God's jury selection process will be. Go ahead, Deidre.
It's funny that you say that because, I work in claims for auto insurance. And, when they have those kind of cases that now have stepped outside of an adjuster situation and is now a legal situation, when they're choosing the jury, that's one of the things that they ask is, do you work in insurance? If you say yes, you're automatically canceled out. Because they know that you're going to be biased in the situation because that's what you do on a regular basis. So if you tell them you work in insurance for that kind of jury, automatically no. Have a good day.
Yeah. So if we have that for our system, you can only imagine how God's system operates. So that is what I wanted to present today, family. Facebook and YouTube. Happy Sabbath. As our brother would say, it's a good saying. Spend a lot of time with God, a little time with self. Until next time, be strong, family. We'll be back Tuesday. So Facebook and YouTube, we're gonna chop it up over here on Zoom as we usually do. And we'll be back with another report Tuesday. What's going on, Zoom? I think I'm still on.